why, as you mentioned in your book, the Czech Republic has become the resident center for Russian security services in Central Eastern Europe?
Well, it has got more reasons. One, I would say it's a historical reason, because if you look on the size of Soviet embassy in Prague, and then now Russian embassy in Prague is one of the biggest one within the European Union and in Europe. It has got 120 employees. And if you look on it in a historical way, at the end of the 60s, when we had a democratic movement, which we called Prague Spring in my country, so one of the decision which was made by the chief of KGB, Andropov, how to fight against the democratic movement, was to make something what Russians call rezidentura, which is like dirty nest of full of agents on the Soviet embassy. And actually it was first residentura in the eastern and central bloc of the countries. And they were successful, because in a fighting against the democratic oppositions, they win. One of the reasons is historically, because until that time they stay in my country, and they had a lot of contacts and long tradition. The other reason, I would say, it's the Russians like my country, because it's a safe place, it's a nice place. So it's also nice to be there.
Why did the Czech government and security services allow this?
Well, I think that they are trying to do something against it, especially last 2 years, when the disinformation campaign is so strong. On the governmental level, there was said that we as a state need to fight against the disinformation campaign, so there was made the decision that under the interior minister they will be establish a new department which will be focused especially on fighting against disinformation. But on the other hand, I agree with you that we still don't do enough against it. If you look on the capacity of Czech counterintelligence service, on the department which is focused on Russian activities and Russian influence in my country, so the number of employees is 60 or 70. If you look on the capacity of the Russian embassy, and you know, as I said, that there is 120 employees, then Czech Secret Service doesn't have a chance to do enough. It's the problem of the decision by the government that not all of the politicians agree and think that this problem is strong and that we need to do something against it.
Who exactly doesn't agree with that? Which political parties?
Well, in each party, I would say you find some politicians. Some of them are pro-European, but some of them are more pro-Kremlin. Especially you can find those politicians within the ruling main party, Social Democrats, but also if you look on the Czech president, Zeman, he is very much pro-Russian. For example, he visited a couple of times conference on Rhodos Island, Dialogue of Civilization, which is conference which is run by Yakunin, Vladimir Yakunin, the guy from the inner circle of Vladimir Putin. And the visit of Czech president was paid by Russian state, and at the same time Czech president had their speech and he was talking in Russian against the sanction. So some of the politicians like he are doing this dirty and nasty policy.
And what do you see in terms of trends that dominate now? Other activities of Russian security services on rise, taking into consideration the events of the last 3 years in the European Union and, for example, in Ukraine?
Well, I would say that the activities of Russian secret services within my country are still very strong. I mentioned the size of Russian embassy in Prague, so it's still very big. There are some discussions between politicians to cut it down a little bit, but only few politicians are talking about it. What is new trend is that the government decide to fight against the disinformation campaign, but still they are at the beginning of this process. And I would say that at the same time Kremlins are trying to use my country as a Troy horse within the European Union. If you look, for example, on the sanctions against Russia because of the war against Ukraine and Crimea. So, for example, the Kremlins are trying to persuade some of the Czech politicians to open this question on the European Union level in that way that we will be the country which will suggest on the European Union level to stop the sanctions.
Did you get any reactions, response from Russia? For example, from Russian embassy in the Czech Republic?
Not from the Russian embassy, and it's more because of my normal work for my magazine, because I'm covering this issue also in my magazine. So I had the reactions that they publish my address where I'm living, and they written in one pro-Russian website, and they're written there that this bastard is living here, everybody can visit him. A couple of times the Russian trolls wrote me that I need to be killed and those kind of threats.